Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland, and as over 20,000 of you are already aware of, I've covered the pre-releases for Deep Purple's album Equals One. If you're curious about that, I'll leave a link up there in the corner for you to get more detail on those releases. But you know, the album is out now, and even I have got my copy right here. All right, and we'll go over the packaging and everything at the end of tonight's video. But the question really remains, now that it's out, is this album the hit that we anticipated? Or sadly, is it a miss by a sad and aging band? So first of all, there's been a lot said about how close Deep Purple was sounding on those pre-releases to the classic lineup of Deep Purple Mark II. But you know what? As you start to listen to this album, although that's true at times, and even with cuts we haven't heard before, I also hear shades of Deep Purple Mark III and IV, and, well, even shades of the Morse era mixed in this album in total. Some of these tracks remind me of the album Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band. But as soon as they start going off in any of those areas, you also realize there is a current sound with Deep Purple with the arrival of McBride on guitar. And McBride is the key to this album. You see, when he was fully on board with Deep Purple as a member and they sat down in the recording studio, they just started jamming. This is how Deep Purple has always written, folks, all right? And his inclusion, it just seemed to kick everything into high gear. They said that some of these songs didn't take over 10 minutes to write. I'll tell you something, as a songwriter, some of my very best songs happened within a 10-minute period. Not only that, but these really fresh ideas that he helped to bring on board really spurred Ian Gillan and Roger Glover to get on to writing lyrics. In other words, that whole let's get down to it, let's get to work approach inspired them. And to tell you the truth, that inspiration that they're talking about translates very well. You know, when I listen to an album and I know I'm gonna review it, and this is gonna be a general review tonight, folks. I've only listened to this album 4 times in total. It's still way too early to give you a track-by-track analysis. But the one thing that I was aware of while I was listening to this album was that this was going to be a very interesting album to review. Now you got to keep in mind, this is a long album. It's not considered a double album. It has 13 tracks and it tracks in at about a little over 51 minutes. Now, when you buy it, it comes out as a double album, or at least on the LP, side of things. But that's because they've also chosen to release this album as a 45 RPM album, all right? So they were gonna have to make that a double album under those circumstances either way. But I don't see this as a double album. This is a single album with 13 cuts. Now, if this album has any weakness to it, it is the runtime. If you ask me, they should have cut this down to 10 or 11 tracks. Not that these tracks are necessarily bad, but we're talking about an album where you sit down and you listen to it in its entirety. It seems to me this album runs just a bit long. But if I cut it, say, even by 2 tracks, those 2 tracks would be tracks that I gave a 3-star rating. I gave each of these tracks a 1 to 5 star rating, and only 2 on this album got a 3-star rating. I would have eliminated those, but that's my own personal preference. In my opinion, the songs Now You're Talking and I'll Catch You could have been left off the album. You know, the band, for the most part, are now in their 70s, with Simon McBride being in his 40s. He's kind of the young pup of the group, and he seems to be that Energizer bunny that any band needs, no matter what their age is, after a while. And by that I mean, you know, a band goes so far with whatever chapter they have, and it comes to a natural conclusion almost every single time. And I think the Morse period for Deep Purple came to that in a semi-organic sort of way. Now, keep in mind, Simon McBride plays some stuff on this album that sounds very Morse-like at times, so they haven't abandoned their Morse period sound in totality. But there's also a new guitar style here that germinates right from Simon's fingertips themselves. He can approach and play like a lot of guitarists, and he's also got the energy. He's interested in putting song structures together, letting Glover and Gillan finishing it up and topping the song off. And every other song on this album is either a 4-star or a 5-star, with 2 of the 4-star songs being 4.5. So I would say, in general, this album is a winner. Now, is this album a classic rock masterpiece? No. But I would say this album is a classic rock album. If I were to give this album a letter grade, I would give it an A-. Now, I bought the basic 2 LP regular album. Actually, it's a limited edition. It comes with purple vinyl. But you know what? I've said it before. The album itself, the artwork, well, I've seen this before. This is the White Album, only they forgot to put the Beatles here in the corner, and somebody scribbled in Deep Purple. All right? So I'm not really crazy about that. However, I will say this, that when you see it right in front of you, it's a bit more impressive than it is when you see photos of this album cover. It's got a wonderful gatefold here, all right? Very familiar, connected with at least one of their pre-releases right there. And then, of course, you get your 2 pieces of vinyl in each portion of the album, all right? Each sleeve, you know. And, you know, I thought they would choose a different purple when they said this was going to be the purple vinyl, you know, edition. It almost seems like I don't know. I'm colorblind too, so maybe it just doesn't show through for me like it does the rest of you folks. But that's not a major detractor, all right? Colored vinyl is always kind of a sweet deal. It also comes with what I've always cherished. You get this wonderful gatefold, and then you get an album-sized book. And here you get the lyrics, right? You get some artwork. There you go. All right. Isn't that wonderful? All right. Hand-drawn symbols that work into their artwork as they go on to promote this album. But, you know, that's like right back from the 60s. I love that. Here's the entire equation that evidently equals 1, you know. Evidently, the story was that Ian Gillan had a friend, and he says, I want an equation that equals 1, but I want it to be long and drawn out because of things he was going on in his life. And when Roger Glover saw the equation, you know, he said, man, that's Deep Purple equals 1. All the gibberish before equals what we are now. And like I've said many times, Deep Purple is a band that is known to change. So it's not one of those bands, they're not like the Beatles, you know, no Ringo, no Beatles, right? They're not like Led Zeppelin, no Robert Plant, no Led Zeppelin, okay? It was that simple. But Deep Purple has always, matter of fact, they're famous for it. We count off their incarnations in marks, don't we? I've lost track on what mark they are now. I wasn't even gonna go to Wikipedia to look up that fact, but whatever mark they're on now, it's a good one, all right? And yeah, my honest opinion is that Simon McBride has a ton to offer this band, and I'm personally glad he's on board. If you buy this album, in my humble opinion, folks, you will not be dissatisfied. All right, folks, that about does it for the video tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. That always helps distribute the video to a wider audience. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, you just kind of watch every once in a while, it's so easy. Here's how easy it is. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, tap that top bell icon. When you do that, you get notified of all my future videos. Otherwise, you know, you kind of got to wait for my videos to show up in your home feed. All right, I'm Michael Noland. This is The Bottom Line, and as always, it's the bottom line as I see it. The true bottom line on this channel is always in the comments, because it's in the comments where we are the tribe.